Welcome back to the Rebellion, everybody. We are in studio with me, as always, Shane Hazel. And today we have an awesome guest. We've been trying to schedule him for a while now, and I'm really excited that we finally got to get him here. We have Dale Jackson.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Dale.
Welcome to the show, man.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Nice to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, I know it's been
I've been keeping up with you for a lot of years now, and to see what you're doing here in the state of Georgia is just absolutely amazing. First of all, tell everybody, your role here in the Georgia Assembly.
My role in the Georgia Assembly officially is nothing. I am not elected. I like to keep it that way.
Yeah.
I realized after 5 years at the Capitol, coming to countless committee hearings and votes, I'm not really sure that's my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I like to pick a particular topic that I'm passionate about and focus all of my energy, into that one thing.
Yeah.
Whether that be back home in LaGrange, I'm involved in quite a few community activities. I serve on like a dozen boards, but they're all entities that I really believe in. I can put my passion and my efforts behind those. So, but at the Capitol at large, just with the various 5 sessions, obviously I have been involved
right.
a great deal in that. So
yeah, and I'd say a great deal is probably a little bit of an understatement.
It's been quite the journey, and it's so interesting to see how things have kind of transitioned from year to year to year. It's like almost like every single year it's something completely different, and every year has been memorable in a different way. I actually spoke for a few minutes at my church this past Sunday and kind of explaining to them that this is in case you haven't noticed, it's a very difficult topic to understand. Medical cannabis in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the background for people who are listening is that Dale has been advocating and lobbying for the expansion of medical cannabis in Georgia.
For at least 4 years now, right? I mean, 2015, 2016?
Yeah, the original bill was 2014.
Okay.
And that's when I first heard about it. And then as we were discussing earlier, that's when I had a friend of mine that had a daughter that was scheduled for brain surgery. And I mean, literally, we're sitting on my back porch, just hanging out. And he's explaining to me the process that his daughter is going to have to go through. Best case scenario for minimal improvements in her seizure activities. And we're talking about step 1, cutting open her brain and inserting a sensor of sorts to basically fine tune where the seizures are coming from, which that is going to obviously affect her. I mean, this is a 15, 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Then step 2 is to actually hope to go in and remove part of her brain, in which she will then have to learn how to talk again and how to walk again, hopefully within a reasonable amount of time.
So extremely invasive, life-altering, to the point where maybe it's it's more of a roll of the dice than it is a medical certainty that they're going to do something like that.
Right. I mean, the success, they were just hoping to get above 50% chances. And so anyway, I explained to him, I was like, I've heard about this thing going on at the Capitol just because of my friends that were already elected and just conversations with them. And so within, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, his family was living in Colorado, and she was experiencing her very first week of seizure-free activity. And then from there, we instantly go to my conversations with him and trying to assist him in any way I could, and then learning about the potential that the cannabis oil could assist my own son and our own family. My son Colin, who is now 11, and we have been treating him since 2016 with cannabis oil, and it has been really life-changing for us in dealing with his autism. There are, and you're going to have to like reel me back in because I can go off on like 12 different
That's
rabbit
why
trails.
you're here, man.
Yeah, probably won't. We're very curious about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But with autism, part of what I do and part of why I'm very public about our struggles, and it's really about education.
Right.
It's about trying to educate others in the autism community. I'm very passionate about helping other families, and part of that is because living in the autism community and getting to meet so many families, it is a very difficult journey. And
when you say difficult, what makes it so difficult for families with autistic children? For all of us that don't have autistic children, I mean, I can imagine some of them, but clue us in as to really what that means.
Well, maybe this is a actual study that they did that they documented that being an autistic family parent
mm-hmm.
is similar to being a combat veteran. And part of what I can only imagine, because I've never been in the military, but the fear associated with serving in the military, and I mean, really, truly, on a daily basis, you could die.
Yeah.
There has to be a tremendous amount of stress associated with that, and that's the one thing that is unique in the autism world is there's no off or on. There's no vacation. Even when which we do travel a lot, but even when we're gone, I mean, we still are dealing with the issues back home with my son. On average, my son does not travel with us.
Mm-hmm.
But in the autism world, at any given moment, things could go from 0 to 100.
Right.
Any situation. And that's extremely stressful. And it's very sad also that in the autism community, there's roughly about an 82% divorce rate.
Wow.
And it really, to be blunt, just pisses me off, because the majority of the time it's dads that just give up and they can't handle it and they leave. And so one of the things that, because of such of a change we've seen with Colin with the oil, that's something that I think can help that situation. When you watch children that have to be restrained in a bed because they're trying to bite themselves, or they're trying to relieve the overstimulation of things that you and I don't even see or hear.
Right.
And so their remedy for that is to beat their head against the concrete wall.
Trying to focus something besides everything else that's going on, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you see those children that are able to be relieved, to calm down, using the oil, that's, I want to try to help other autistic families know about that, learn about that, experience it. And even for myself, because thankfully my son does not demonstrate those same tendencies.
Mm.
However, I've been around long enough and know enough families to understand that generally those more severe changes happen after puberty, when hormones come into the picture.
Yeah.
And so much of my efforts over the last 5 years have been almost like an insurance policy for myself, for my own family. Selfishly, I admit that. Right now, the oil that we develop for Colin has a higher percentage of CBD in it than it does THC, but it still has a significant amount of THC. But we wanted to add the CBD because CBD has been proven to be beneficial for brain development.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Colin doesn't technically need CBD for his autism, he also has, underdeveloped areas of his brain. So we wanted to add the CBD in there to help with that as well. But you also have to be very careful. You can't have too much CBD because that has also been proven nationwide to actually increase stimming for autistic children. And also part of why I'm trying to be so public and vocal about this is that a lot of parents, this is a complicated issue. So many people have, I mean, literally, I bet you I've received close to 1,000 messages from people that say, hey, I'm trying the CBD for my autistic child, or hey, do you need this CBD? I just found it. And I'm like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, the CBD, it's fine for joint pain and for adults that you find at the health food store. But it's, people think that CBD is just another way to say cannabis oil, and it's not.
Completely separate.
Yeah, it's just, CBD is just one of roughly 150 components of cannabis oil. So I'm trying to help them understand, you know, so they don't have to go down that path of saying, well, I thought the CBD was going to work for my autistic child, and gosh, you know, it made everything worse, and you know, you've just been lying this whole time. And so I'm trying to educate them, but I'm this is where you have to steer me back, bring me back home. But part of, we developed 2 other oils for those more severe cases of autism, and which have a much higher level of THC in them and 0 CBD. And so while my son doesn't need those today, I want to do everything I can to make sure they're available 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now in case he does need those. And so, and trying not to lose focus, but you mentioned why autism and what's different about autism. I guess if I had to describe it, I would say that there are people out there that deal with some horrific situations. Young kids with cancer, young kids needing a heart transplant for whatever reason that is. More times than not, though, you have a goal. I mean, if your 8-year-old daughter needs a heart transplant, well, for starters, most of the time she's probably doing okay. Like you can have a good day.
Right.
She can have a birthday party, and she can do certain things to control her heart rate, and then you've got that goal. Okay, my daughter needs a heart, and then you can find that heart and you can get that heart. Or even if a horrific situation like your daughter has cancer, there are horrible days through that journey.
Sure.
But there are good days as well.
Yeah.
And there's an insight of treating that cancer, however your doctor and yourself decide you need to treat that cancer, and you can win that. With autism, we still don't know where it came about. We don't really definitively know even how to treat it, and we certainly don't know how to cure it. And, you know, so I'm left with the realization that, you know, and this plays a role even in my business and what I do. You know, my dad is over 70 years old. You know, he hadn't worked in over a decade. And all he has to do is worry about him and my mom for the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got to worry about not only the next 50 years for myself, but I've got to worry about the next 30 or 35 years after that,
right,
for my son. And that's just it's a permanent deal. And so anyway,
so to get back to, you kept on saying we have developed these different CBD oils, and that you're trying to
cannabis oil,
cannabis oils, and you're trying to point people in the right direction, so they understand like the limitations, what is good, and so forth. Who is we, and where do you point people, like the science of it?
Well, that is a very unique and changing situation. Years ago, we developed. See, as I'm actually talking, I have to think about what I can say and what I can't say.
For legal reasons.
Yes, for legal reasons.
I thought so.
But the we will just stay the we.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
it's a crazy thing that we have to do that, man. I cannot, in this day and age of information and understanding about what cannabis really is, to have to talk about things secretly so that we're not persecuted and made criminals by our own government for trying to help our kids live better lives is absolutely one of the most reprehensible, god-awful things I can even imagine. Like, and I don't even have a kid that would, I should say, maybe they probably would benefit from certain types of medical cannabis type treatments. We all have that endocannabinoid system, but to live this day in, day out, like you were describing, because I had never thought of it that way, and to just to be very honest with you, I've dealt with these situations since I was probably in elementary school, helping out with kids and with different, say, just different scenarios within their life. And for autism, I had never thought of it. Just trying to help your kid live a more human type life, human type existence, to be absolutely persecuted for what you might say on a podcast somewhere, like, unbelievable to me.
Well, I assumed it's some people who took a risk, and you don't want to put those people in danger. Right. But so I'll pivot a little bit. It is known, and this isn't a secret, that you treated Colin at a time when it was illegal, and then it became legal to some extent. Yeah. Can you tell us about that journey? Because that's in the news, and
gosh, that was a very interesting. So this was in 2016, and we are sitting in a committee hearing. This was originally, of course, we passed the original Haley's Hope Act in 2015. We know we got the list of conditions that are approved. You can't buy it, but you can have it, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So this was right after we had tried to offer up a cultivation bill. We tried it in 15, and the Governor Deal instantly said, don't even try it. I'll veto it. It's never going to go anywhere. So then we passed what we did in 15, and then 16, our efforts were to add autism and add cultivation. Well, instantly in the committee, in the House side, cultivation got kicked out. But in the meantime of having committee hearings, the GBI testified about a little 2 sentences that they wanted to add to our bill and close a loophole. And we're like, what are you referring to? What loophole? And like, oh no, it's nothing. It's nothing. But we went back and saw back in 1980 something, and we need to close this loophole. And this is just language, to do that. And so we started investigating, and we found out, it was amazing, that we would actually have had a much broader law if we would have passed no law at all. Because back in the 80s, and I'm hoping I can remember the statistics. It's been a while since I talked about this topic, but we discovered that legally, on the books, there was no definition of cannabis oil that contained THC less than 15% THC. It wasn't on the books. Wow. So technically, you could be up to have oil
to 14.99%, and you're good to go.
And so what we did was unknowingly, what we did was we passed a law that defined cannabis oil and then put restrictions on who could use it and what you had to do to go about getting it and how much you could have.
And took it down to 5%.
At 5% to 0%. However, because we didn't know about this other law, at that time, still legally from 14.99% down to 5.01% was still perfectly legal for anybody in the state of Georgia because it wasn't legally defined. We had defined it from 5% to 0%, but from 5.1 to 14.9, it wasn't defined. And that's what the GBI wanted, to close that loophole and bring the limit down from 15 down to 5. But it was because of that I was able to convince my wife, who is a much more wise and cautious person than I am, that, hey, let's give this a shot. Let's try the oil on Colin. And once we did that and we saw such an amazing difference, even my wife, as cautious as she is, she refused to stop treat him, because the GBI did close that loophole during that session in 2016. But we continued to treat him anyway.
You awful parents.
Yeah, I know. Like it's a horrible. And I can kind of joke about that.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I've made a couple of videos about this topic, and we sometimes as male and not mommies, it can be harder for us to really wrap our head around. So I was trying to explain to my wife, listen, I'm really good friends with the sheriff, the mayor, the chief of police, her brother's on the, anyway, I can go into that. I think I can go into that story later, but I was like, look, DFACS, I'm raising money. I'm sitting on the board for DFACS. I mean, they're not going to come and snatch our children out of your care. And I said, even if they did, I would have things cleared up within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And this is one thing that I won't forget. And she looked at me and she said, Dale, I truly believe that you would have things straightened out overnight. She said, but I cannot fathom the idea of my children being separated from me for 1 hour.
Right.
And that's something that I probably couldn't control if that worst case scenario were to happen. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for my wife, that's not an option ever under any circumstances. And so that was an understanding on my behalf, and I got it then. And then shortly after we started treating Colin, there were just so many things that we were able to experience that we had never experienced before. It was a regular occurrence in our house. Colin would wake up at 2:30, and when he wakes up, because of his limited abilities, I can't explain to him that, hey, it's 2:30 in the morning. You need to go back to bed.
Right.
Once he's up, he's up. And even on a good day, when he's happy, sometimes worse when he's happy, is he's very loud. And I have women in the house that like to sleep.
Yeah, I do too.
So that means I put him in the truck and turn on Cars on the DVD player, and we drive around for 8 hours, but, and I mean, on numerous occasions, we'd have to take two cars on vacation, we, go to the mountains, with my mom's family and with our family. And on numerous occasions, I would have to just leave and come home, cause it was overwhelmed with the crowds. Mm-hmm. But one thing through this process that I hadn't even thought about until I saw it happen is from Colin was born in 2008. And so probably from the time he was around probably 2 mm-hmm. until 2016 when we started treating him with cannabis oil. I came home one day, and Colin had been to school, and a normal school day. And I walked in the living room, and for the first time in probably 5 or 6 years, I saw my son sleeping. He was sleeping on the couch. It hit me. I'd never seen my son take a nap. And then I started thinking about it, and I recalled. Well, I didn't have to think about it hard, because I realized this, but I'd seen him physically sleep for probably 23 minutes over that 5-6 year span, and those were on 2 occasions where we had left Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, or Lake Junaluska, North Carolina, at 2 a.m, and after 4 hours riding back home, around 6 o'clock in the morning, he fell asleep in his car seat of just pure exhaustion. And on one of those occasions, I actually pulled over on the side of the road, or in a gas station, and just to watch him sleep. There's a there's a certain amount of comfort and peace for a parent that comes with watching your child sleep.
Yeah.
And even with him physically, I mean, sleep is good for us. We need to sleep.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest struggles with autism is because of the overstimulation. I mean, we had already, had to tape up the little light on his smoke detector and the little green light on his baby monitor. And even then, we had to put dark curtains over the windows. And now he actually has a tent that he sleeps in. It's one of those tents that goes over your bed.
I used to have one when I was a kid. Transformers all over. It was great.
Yeah.
Loved it.
And also it helps him stay in his bed. But anyway, I won't, but it's one thing to know your child's sleeping, but when as a parent, you can't see them sleep. It just does something to you. And for him especially, we've noticed that he has started to grow. He's getting big. And it's kind of a negative because I still have to carry him a lot of places. And now he's like, he's still tiny for an 11-year-old. Mm-hmm. But since we've been treating him with cannabis oil, not only does he eat better, he's open to eating different types of food. But because of that sleep, his body is getting rejuvenated and it is growing. Mm-hmm. So that's just some of the things that people don't think about. Some kind of positive side effects.
It obviously affects you. I mean, when I see your those fatherly that love that you have for your child come through on your face when you start to talk about seeing them at peace and knowing that something better is happening for them. I can't fathom. I do obviously understand that love that you have for your children that is unlike anything else on this earth, and to start to understand that. Take me through a little bit, like when you guys first started treating, what were the first few signs that you saw that you just started saying, man, how amazing is this gift that is cannabis for your child?
I think one of the, just a practical thing, being able to go eat as a family.
Yeah.
That was very difficult. And because my Colin can be very loud, like I said, in a good way. He's just happy, but happy. He doesn't know how to talk, but he does know how to make noise with his mouth. And that's one of the things that you kind of, it took a while, but me and my wife, Sarah, would be in a restaurant and Colin would just be there, with our family. We're together as a,
yeah. There have been times, and I'll tell you, Dale, I appreciate your forthcomingness and your ability to share, man, because when I had to work some things out in my past as well with everything that I've been through, the more I talked about it, the more I was able to talk about it, the more I was able to communicate those thoughts and ideas and feelings, aspirations, hopes, desires, and fears with the people that I really wanted to, other veterans, other people out there in my life, so that they really understood the gravity of this situation. I think this personal side of you, where you are able to communicate, your emotion through this, is one of those things people need to hear. I see a man before me that has lived with his kids, obviously their entire lives, trying to make it better. And for the first time to start to see how that impacts a family where, you can go and function as a family outside of your house. Those small little things that we all take for granted. I mean, I know for a long time it was, for us, it was everywhere you go, you had to have a diaper bag, some little things, car seats, you name it. Like, you don't start, really start to kind of go back and live your life like the way you did before kids. Like, I'm just starting to get to that point now where if I want to take my kids and go do something like that. And I don't take it for granted, but I want everybody out there within the sound of our voice to understand that there are people out there that don't need to live that way, that are living that way because of a lot of what's going on with our elected officials. This story is amazing. And I'm happy for you, to share this. And if you need seconds here sometimes to kind of to breathe, please. But if you people out there don't think that this is a natural, inalienable human right to treat your children the way you think that they should be treated medically, I don't know what else you're waiting on for that. I mean, I hope your life isn't affected where you need it, but for God's sakes, it's one of those things where those people that are affected, like Dale here and his wife and family and the countless others across this country and this world, man, they need for us to get this right and start to really understand that we cannot continue what we're doing the way we've been doing it for past, I don't know, since the 1930s. I mean, it's crazy.
So I kind of want to get into what Shane alluded to. First of all, like you said, you can see it on your face and in just the way you express yourself. I don't have kids, so I feel a little bit, I can understand it, but I imagine there's more that would make me understand it better. But Shane alluded to the other families and people with autism and a bunch of other things that cannabis oil can help with. We know each other through politics. Mm-hmm. You have a very practical and smart way of approaching politics. There's different strategies and so forth. But I imagine that helped you deal with all the emotions in dealing with people who push back, people who don't understand the gravity, people who are, whether they realize it or not, stopping you from helping your child. If you can tell me a little bit about the other people who were involved in pushing for this and how it affected them, and maybe the fact that they had less political experience was difficult.
Yeah, part of I mentioned earlier, when I first got involved, I just kind of heard about it from afar, offered to help, anything you need, and then obviously the more it affected my family, the more I was like, no, I'm getting involved in this, because most of the families up there, they had no prior political involvement. And so they were, in my opinion, by some, to a degree, being taken advantage of, basically saying, well, this is just the way it is, and this is what we have to do it this way. And, mm-hmm. and I had enough close friends, that a lot of them, you and I friends, up there, that could kind of fill me in on, okay, no, that you could take this strategic approach, or even legislatively, you can do this.
The takeaway there is don't always believe everything a politician tells you.
Right. And, but it was I actually told, this story, this past week at church, probably two of the lowest points in the process. And I think they may have both occurred in 2016. 2016 was the 1 year that we didn't technically get any legislation passed, except the GBI closed that loophole that I mentioned earlier. But
thanks, GBI.
Yeah, it was sine die 2016, and our objective that year, because we'd already kind of had given up on the cultivation, we were just trying to add autism to the list. And last day of session, of course, at this point we thought that session, had to end right at midnight. This was the year, remember, it went to like 12:52 or whatever. So I had been talking with the Senate that whole session, because for whatever reason, our whole movement is like, because Alan Peake was in the House, it was like only House members knew what was going on. It's like they intentionally didn't talk to the Senate. I'm not an elected official, so I don't really understand that whole great divide between the House and the Senate.
It's this weird power struggle.
Right. But so I was like, well, I think Alan Peake's got everything handled in the House, so I'm going to focus all my efforts on the Senate, because that seems to be the lack of communication, and try to help facilitate conversations. I mean, I admit I'm not an elected official. I can only do so much, but I can help facilitate conversation between the two chambers. And so I developed a good relationship with quite a few of the state senators. And traditionally what had always happened is our bill starts off in the House, and then it gets sent over to the Senate, where we had our good friend Renee Unterman. And, who knows what is coming out, of committee. And so our bill was late getting over to the Senate. And this was the last day of session. This literally, I'm talking with Senator Mike Dudgeon, and he was, talking to the Republican caucus. And this was 11:51. I'm up in the gallery, and I'm obviously and we're waiting on the vote. Casey Cagle was supposed to call up the vote any second now. It's 11:51. We've at that time we thought we only had 9 minutes, and Mike Dugan walks out from underneath the gallery so that I could see him, and motions me down to the floor. Get down here. It's not easy to get down from the gallery all the way back down the floor. So, I sprinted.
There's people everywhere on the tiny die.
Yeah. And so literally, I never will forget, I'm on the front row of the gallery. And then, there's like 5 or 6 rows. And especially in the Senate, they control the gallery very tightly. And it's actually funny because I've gotten to be really good friends with Robert, who's like the head sergeant at arms up there. But I jumped over all the rows of chairs to get down there because I'm thinking I got 9 minutes to get down there. And so anyway, I jump out there. Of course, they're yelling at me like, "You can't come back in here," And I was like, "Fine, it's 11:51. I'm not coming back anyway, so I don't care." And you probably won't remember me next session, but so anyway, I run downstairs, and Mike Dugan is standing there at the main chamber door, and he hands me the piece of paper, which was the draft. That's what the Republican caucus in the Senate agreed to.
The conference committee at that point or not?
No, it wasn't a conference committee. It would have been almost extremely difficult or maybe even impossible to actually pass it. But it had already, passed the House and sent over to the Senate, and this was the Senate version.
Okay.
So it would have had to go back to the House to approve or agree. But anyway, so he hands me this bill, and I don't want anything of what I'm about to say to be in a negative state for him, because Mike Dugan was really fighting for us at that time. And I really appreciate what he did, but he handed me the bill and he said, "Dale, you've got 15 seconds to tell me yes or no." And he said, "We included autism." So we included my son. He said, "But they are proposing to reduce the THC level from 5% to 3%. And I tell you, there's not been many times that I have physically felt a metaphoric punch in the gut like that. And I handed it back over to him, and I said, "You might as well burn it, because we're not signing off on this." And I literally bent over and I cried, hardest I've ever cried at the Capitol.
So what did they give you a reason?
No, there are no reasons for anything, and there's no scientific data. None of this is based on anything. It's all politics. It's all, the Faith and Freedom Coalition or the Sheriff's Association and what they think. None of them have a clue what in the world this is going to look like. All they know is that if it's Faith and Freedom Coalition, this is strictly a cause for them to raise money from 84-year-old scared grandmothers. And
amen.
If you're at the Sheriff's Association, this is simply they're going to try to do everything in their power to make sure that they can arrest people and collect their cash that's in their car and collect their car, and marijuana is the number one thing that's the easiest thing for them to do this on.
Cannabis is one of those things that I have gone around with just even recently with my own local sheriff, and I imagine you're good buddies with your sheriff down there, so I hope he's a little more educated than mine.
He served on the commission with us in full support last year.
That's amazing, because I'll tell you right now, Ron Freeman up here in Forsyth County, I was at one of the local meetings here where he attended not too long ago, and this fear mongering bit that he tried to pull off, that I saw him pull off with a tea party, and nobody even questioned him. He got up there and he said, basically, what we're talking about is now 70 or 80% THC, and now it's in edible gummy form. And guess what? Kids are taking it. They don't feel anything within 5 minutes, so they take some more. And then before you know it, within 15, 20 minutes, they drop. He uses this language on purpose. They all use this kind of language on purpose, and it's to scare the hell out of moms and dads and grandmothers and grandfathers who are out there who actually vote. And I called him on it. I said, I know you didn't get any pushback on this, Ron, here at the local tea party, but I'm not going to let you get away with it, man. Tell everybody in here how many of those kids who, quote unquote, drop have died. Yeah. And he goes, well, and I said, 0, absolutely 0 of those have ever OD'd on cannabis. Even the THC, the 70, 80, 90% THC that's out there. Yeah, do they have hospital visits that are going up? Yeah, that's because people who are out of town that don't know what the heck they're doing come out there and maybe mix it with a cocktail or two, and then they feel like they're having some kind of crazy outer body experience, psychedelically, and then they go to the hospital and they give them some Doritos and a nice quiet place to sleep it off, and they're done. Like that's the side effect. Yeah. He didn't like that a whole lot, but that's the problem. Is we've got all these people who are out there in power type positions. Your local sheriffs, your assembly members. People like Renee Unterman, who thinks she's going to run here in the Georgia 7th District for representative. I guarantee you I'm going to hammer the hell out of that, because a lady like that who will not allow somebody like Dale to treat their children, what a monster. You want to talk about who the real monsters are. It's not the parents and the society that at large that's out there trying to decriminalize a natural plant and its medicinal qualities. It's these people who lie to our faces, who are in power positions, that will make us criminals and throw us into cages, and even perhaps take our lives at the end of the day if we do not comply with them. It's horrendous.
It's to go back on what Dale was saying about it's just politics. Like why? I think to go towards a solution direction.
Sure.
Not that you're not. I don't want Renee Unterman to win. I want Ron Freeman to one day apologize on this podcast for being too flippant with words and so forth. But the fact that Dale said it's just politics. So here's a quote from he heads the Georgia Sheriff's Association. He says, "We are truly fighting an uphill battle, and we may not win a battle or the war, but we will go down trying to do the right thing on this issue." The problem that I think this illustrates is that he thinks that there is a war or a battle, and the only reason that it's there is the politics. Yeah. There's nothing in there that talked about, I don't know, and this is just a quote. It might be taken out of context to some degree, but there's nothing there talking about the parents or understanding or anything else besides the power that comes between two parties who are fighting within a political battle.
You could grow this in your garden as soon as you start growing tomatoes, for God's sakes.
It's the same reason that I assume Dale kind of says, well, it seems like some of these families and some of these people who have no political experience are just trying to do the right thing for their families, that they might be taking advantage of it a little bit. They're used as this political fodder. Have you seen any optimism and kind of getting away from that paradigm that makes us all, that unfortunately seems to make a lot of us enemies with each other?
I will say this year in the session was a lot different at the Capitol. Having a new governor, new lieutenant governor, it was better. Now this particular issue, I mean, I will say the positive that I saw, that there were individuals that have never supported any of our legislation that actually voted for it this year. And it really wasn't one of those situations where leadership just pressed on them, and so they, begrudgingly voted. It's because we have seen so many people, and I'm not going to give her a lot of credit, but even to a degree, Renee Unterman helped us this past year. There were individuals from my area that had never voted for it, that voted for us this year, because over the last 12 months, their family members needed cannabis oil.
Wow.
And so they saw it firsthand. They saw it being administered firsthand. They saw what it really was. And it completely changed their opinion on the whole issue. Now, are they, next thing you know, going to be saying, hey, man, we'll have recreational? No. I mean, we're a long way away from that. And that's probably part of some of my more practical approach, politically speaking. You know, and I mean, Banks, you know, you and I both have a lot of the same friends, and you know, I can, case in point, if I can maybe talk about this one. So you remember the story I told you on Sine Die in 16, and then 17. That was the year I started day one, because I ended Sine Die 2016 with Fox News, Channel 2, Channel 46, all of them behind me as I'm beating on the lieutenant governor's door demanding a meeting. You know, and I'm smart enough to understand. I mean, look, that was a last-ditch effort. I mean, I know how to throw grenades. I prefer not to throw grenades.
That's good optics, though. I'm just saying.
It was good optics. It's really good that now they know I will do that.
Yeah.
I'm capable of doing that. I prefer not to do that. So 2017, you know, I start day one meeting with Bo Butler, Chief of Staff for Casey Cagle, and Casey Cagle. And I'm saying, listen, you know, it's 2017. We want to add autism to the list. And we're not touching the THC percentage like y'all tried to, you know, hand us on Sine Die of 2016. And however, there are politics. So I'm meeting with the lieutenant governor. Peak is already, like, you know, drafting up a version in the House. And actually, Ben Watson actually sponsored the version. We're going to add autism now
in the Senate.
And Dr. Ben Watson has been a tremendous asset. And he's gotten blamed for a lot of stuff that he didn't deserve. And this is one of them. The politics of the Senate and the House. The Senate always likes to, you know, they like to think that they're the more deliberate body, and they're more cautious, and they're more conservative. Not conservative in like the Republican Democrat conservative,
just keeping
cautious.
Politically. Yeah.
They're just cautious. And so, of course, I know all along that Alan Peake is drafting this other version, and he's asking for, you know, let's add 10 more conditions.
Which is smart, to ask for more.
Right. Yeah. Ask for more. Okay, so that you just proved my point. So it's smart to ask for more. Okay, so the Senate, they're offering up in the negotiations, because, Bank, you know, this is all about negotiations.
Unfortunately.
So they're offering up autism and reducing the THC percentage back down to 3%. Okay, so, but now I'm with them as they're writing this. Okay, I mean, we're one-on-one conversation, and I've developed a relationship with them since 2015.
They at this point is Ben Watson, or it's Ben Watson and
it's Ben Watson, it's
in
Matt Brass,
with...
it's a lot of different senators plus the lieutenant governor's office.
Okay,
I mean, we're all on the same page as far as now, and this is where you got to work with me, Banks.
Oh, I'm
gonna stretch you a little bit.
I meant practical in the most endearing of ways, just so you know.
Okay. So they assure me, they tell me, and I mean, they're writing this bill for me. So it would be very easy for me to destroy this bill if it didn't change. So I said, one, you understand? So we're all on the same page. I will never agree to dropping it to 3%. However, it's part of the negotiations. So the Senate at the beginning of session offers up.
Do you mind if we do a rabbit hole of why that 3 to 5% is so important?
Well, the biggest issue, principle. We passed 5%. We're not backing up.
See, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah. But the real world is there, like some of those oils that we develop for more severe autistic children, they included, THC in levels of 3% or 4.5%. Okay. And it's just it's simply a matter of giving your child 1 milliliter versus having to give them 2 milliliters. Well, therefore, a bottle of oil costs $150. Well, you just went through it in half the time. That's costly.
Yeah.
So we want the limit to be higher, not because we want to get high, but because we want to be able to treat different conditions at a more cost-effective way.
So you're not taking any of this oil yourself, then? I mean, you're not dipping into your kid's stash of cannabis oil. I think that's what people think that is going to happen.
Well, currently I have to. When I'm like making it, and I got to like take it to make, because I want to see, okay, well, how's this affecting me? And then now I have to study and learn, okay, how's it affecting my son? Because I can't ask him. And so because it's illegal, because I'm not even sure that this is the correct percentage, I'm going to take it first to protect my son. Because somebody could accidentally given me some concentrate that was 78%, and they told me it was at 12%. And then in the mixing ratio, I don't want him getting high.
Right.
Oh, I didn't realize you were mixing it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way a lot of us have to do it here in the state, because it's a lot easier for me to get a small amount of concentrate. So that will last me a long time. That I can make up my own bottles.
Right.
Just because you find that one person, that one entity that will give you something.
Sure.
Well, then you want to make it worthwhile.
Sure.
I don't want to have to keep coming back every month. He may not be available.
And logistically, it's a nightmare.
So my point was, in 2017, myself and Senator Watson took a whole bunch of crap because we offered up a bill that would lower the THC to 3%, knowing the whole entire time, that's not what the final version is going to be. After, we pass it out of the Senate and get sent over to the House is going to add, 8 more conditions to it and take the THC back to 5%. So, like always, the House got to look like the hero when they did exactly like we knew they were going to do. And then the Senate used the negotiations to, okay, well, now let's just add 4 conditions, but we'll leave, we'll compromise and we'll leave the THC at 5%, knowing they were going to do that from day one. But in order to negotiate down and not let the conditions get out of control, they had to start with lowering to 3%, go back to 5%. And then instead of just autism, we added, I can't remember, 3 or 4 more that year.
It was like PTSD, wasn't it?
No, that was actually in 2018.
Okay.
The PTSD and intractable pain, which were pretty big. And Governor Deal actually made that happen, which was amazing. And there again, talking about people having real family need and it changing their opinion.
Yeah.
Governor Deal.
Really?
Governor Deal went into the Republican Senate caucus meeting on sine die and told them, you're passing this bill.
Because
he took our bill and added PTSD and intractable pain to it and told them that they were passing it.
And you're saying that's
I'm not saying why
thing
he had
in
that,
his life?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I can't explain it any other way based on his previous 4 years of his stance.
Sounds like what you need is more politicians with problems that cannabis can solve. I mean, and I hate to say it that way, but
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? It's their own self-interest at that point.
That has naturally happened over the last 5 years.
It could be that. It could also be you and all the other families who put pressure. Politicians are also people, and people make decisions for a variety of reasons. One of the most clearly that anybody can understand is like fear, whether it be for one's reputation, for one's power, and so forth. So, but I hope it was for the best of reasons. But who knows?
And on your point, because politically, I get that as politicians. However, that's a lot of people can look at what myself and say Shannon and Blaine Cloud and Sebastian Cott and numerous others. Hey, you're always at the Capitol, but 95% of the time, it was me, Shannon, Blaine, Sebastian, 4 people. And we got families. Other people have families. They got jobs. They can't. They can come for okay, we're going to have this vote or this committee hearing, but the majority of the time, it's 4 people, and it wasn't enough. Excuse me. To if we could have had 2,000 people show up at the Capitol, we could have got this done in 2015. that's human nature. I don't want to upset anybody, but you can click like and click share on Facebook, but in politics, for the most part,
you got to take action.
Show up.
Yeah.
And we just didn't have that. I mean, we'd hold a rally and there'd be 150 people there, not 2,000. And that's what we needed. We needed that 2,000.
Maybe we can help with that, Banks. I mean, in the future, when it comes to showing up at those key opportune times and putting together an army to go down there and demand rights, I mean, that's definitely something that I feel called to help do. This past year, I guess it was April 17th or so for House Bill 324 that Governor Kemp signed.
April 2nd. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a National Autism or Global Autism Awareness Day.
Yeah.
April 2nd.
Interesting coincidence.
Yeah.
Or planned conspiracy.
Yeah, I
by
planned
Dale.
it all along.
So you guys
that was
got
Siney Dye.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Siney Dye was April 2nd.
Yeah.
Okay.
April 17th was
he
when
signed-
Kemp signed it.
Yeah.
okay.
You guys got some more wins out of that. My question is what is the roadmap in the future? And feel free to say, hey, listen, we're not giving the people out there in opposition any cues or whatever have you. I mean, what is the future for your activism here in Georgia for cannabis decriminalization, legalization, you name it?
All right, so being completely honest, when it comes to this particular issue, I'm done.
Really?
I've said it all along. I said this was all about access for my son.
Mm-hmm.
I will be involved, but it'll be in a much different way in the industry.
Okay.
I'm not going to have ownership, but I hope to serve. Next week, leadership is making their appointments to the Cannabis Commission. And I hope to serve on that commission and actually help to, from a parent point of view, from someone who has experience traveling the West and bringing this back, and from a business owner point of view, I hope to be able to serve the state on that commission and write the regulations and make sure that they are as parent and patient friendly as possible. There are still things to be done on this issue. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. But I have sunk everything into this issue for the past 5 years. And, now I think that my efforts can be better served rolling out this and actually making it work. The lieutenant governor took a lot of crap this year for his and Regina Quick's idea about shipping it in from other states.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't know if that'll work or not, but the commission was given the authority to try to make that work.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can make that work, then we can have legal access to medicine here within 2 months.
Yeah. Versus
the 18 months it's going to take to actually get a company growing it and something to make oil out of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I envision that. I want to be a part of, not legally a part of, but I kind of want to be a part of making sure that these companies are taking care of patients. Because it's one thing to grow a plant, process the plant, bottle the oil, and sell it. Mm-hmm. But the most important thing is, how do you treat that family afterwards? Because these families are scared to death. They're not, society as a whole is not used to the way we have to do things.
Right.
They're used to going to a doctor saying, oh, you have this condition. You need to take 10 milligrams of this particular pill that's readily available in nice little tablets. And then, just if you haven't experienced those frantic phone calls at 2 a.m, from autism moms that are just freaking out.
Right.
Well, do I give him 0.3 or do I give him 0.5? I don't care. Just give it to him. It's not going to hurt him.
Right.
That's my response, especially when they're calling at 12:30, at night. I mean, like case in point, we had, I tell the story a lot. We had a young mother that was here in Atlanta, but I think she had recently gone through a divorce and she had a 5 or 6 year old son with autism. And school was just out. He goes to California to spend a week with his dad. And in typical male fashion, dad's not paying attention to what, the wife says. And she's like, we had told her, give him 0.3 milliliters. So the very first thing dad does, gives him 3 milliliters, not 0.3 milliliters.
Right on.
So he immediately calls her. She immediately calls me. She's freaking out. And I'm like, well, when he wakes up from his nap, just give him a piece of pizza. He'll be fine. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened.
Thing, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, and that's what I made the public challenge. I was like, show me a sheriff deputy to take, 10 times the amount of Oxycontin that his doctor prescribed him. And I'll take 10 times the amount of cannabis oil, and we'll see who wakes up.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. No challenge accepted today, I imagine.
Not at all.
Nothing, huh?
So anyway, that was one of, there are countless examples and stories. So I would imagine you would want to talk about our current bill. I mean, I don't know how much in-depth conversation y'all have had. Y'all understand what it is?
So I actually had some question on that. So the background that Shane was talking about, there was a big change this year. It's
324, HB 324 here in Georgia is what it was, right?
In-state cultivation. Yeah. And as much as I've read it, I have forgotten. So I know that it there's the board you're talking about. It can give out licenses. I think it's 2 large licenses and 4 small,
right?
And then there's 2 universities which will be allowed to cultivate in some manner. What I've forgotten. So are they allowed to cultivate up to that 5%? Are they allowed to cultivate cannabis, or is it hemp? What are the details there?
Okay, so that's actually some good news. I guess it's a little bit too late now to worry about it, but we were able to navigate the legislative session without that topic really coming up. So there's no such thing as a cannabis plant that produces 5% THC.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can grow whatever cannabis at whatever percentage that you can make it produce.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
obviously,
and for people that are out there, that haven't done the backside of this. I mean, the natural flower that is part of the cannabis plant. Yeah, what are you going to get? Maybe 28 to maybe 30% with some of the hybrids that are out there that are the most potent out of all of them. Correct.
Right, and then what you're going to do is you're going to then process that whole entire row of plants that was whatever that strain you're shooting for. You're going to process that down into concentrate, that's 94% THC.
Mm-hmm.
And then you use those concentrates to mix and to create different bottles of oil in a very scientific way. A lot of people think that you just grow a plant, you process that one plant, and that one plant becomes a bottle.
Just put it in the Vitamix, right?
Whatever it is, And but it's much more scientific and medical than that, where we take different strains. That's what's always funny when somebody will ask me, well, what strain are you taking? Nobody's taking any strain.
Right.
It's a bottle of oil that is made up of probably 10 different strains, because what you do is all a strain means is this particular plant maybe has a little bit higher content of, say, CBN. And this particular plant and strain has a higher content of, say, CBG. And so there you grow those strains because you want to get a high level of that one particular cannabinoid. And then you use that and you put a little bit in this bottle and a little bit in this bottle to divvy it all up. Anyway, not sure where we were going with that whole statement, but
I just wanted to understand the details of the final version of the bill.
Right. So a couple of hidden, I'm not going to say hidden, let's just call them silver linings. So the licenses will be administered to 2 large at 100,000 square feet and 4 smaller ones at 50,000 square feet. So
that's roughly about 9 acres.
Correct.
Yeah.
That changed from 20 to 50 then the smaller ones at some point, right? It's a detail that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But
trust me, the sine die, that number went. They were going to be 12. They were going to be 9. It was crazy, the negotiations and the conference, and then another one, much like Dill, Kemp, and his office and his leadership, he came into the conference committee, and he assured them that they were going to pass something. And I'm very grateful for his efforts in that as well. But there's a key. If I have any geometry students out there, square footage is a very important term.
Is this 2D square footage or
2D square footage?
Yeah. So 2D square footage puts you on a very flat. You can't elevate from there.
Well, no. The description in the bill says 50,000 square feet.
Okay, so in terms of building, I know when you're looking at your ground level type floors and everything like that,
right?
That's where most of your cost is incurred. So you can elevate.
I'm just saying.
Let's not point out any loopholes here, for God's sake.
You're going to see some really tall warehouse buildings.
I think you might see some really tall buildings that are one floor.
Okay. I almost want to clip this part out so nobody gets ideas, but I don't think the GBI is listening to the podcast.
Yeah, not yet.
And so here's another little tidbit is that, so you asked the question, what about the university system? So the University of Georgia and Fort Valley State University will each be given a license if they want it. So good point number one is if they don't want it, it automatically gets put into the private industry pool of licenses. Okay. So then it goes from 2 and 4 to say 3 and 4. If Georgia doesn't want it, but yet Fort Valley does, and nobody wants to like bring up that topic of, well, hey, which is the big license and which is the small license? Because nobody wants to say Fort Valley, you're the small license, University of Georgia, you're the big one. But that would happen. It would look something like that. I think they're going to take us up on the offer and want to participate in the program. Now, this is where it gets even better. One, they can grow. All of these companies can grow hemp or cannabis, both of them. And we left that in the bill because in order to, a lot of the oils do need high levels of CBD, mm-hmm. and it's easier to get CBD from a hemp plant than it is from a cannabis plant. However, and then everybody would say, well, why are you worried about that? We just passed the farm bill, and now in Georgia there's going to be hemp farms everywhere. You can't use that. That's outdoor grow that has to be controlled with pesticides and all sorts. That's not medicine. So we needed the ability to be able to grow hemp indoors so that it can be used in our medicine. However, going back to the university system. So let's say that Georgia and Fort Valley State say, yes, we want to participate in this program. We would like our one guaranteed license. They don't have to grow it. All they have to do is hold the license. So, in essence, the University of Georgia, which I would imagine this is the way it's going to go down, is the University of Georgia can go and contract with any company they want to, as long as the commission approves and make sure they have a safe facility and so forth like that. So, in essence, what you're probably going to find when it's all said and done is there will be 2 companies that have we'll call them a tier 1 license at the 100,000 square feet. There are going to be 4 companies that are awarded a license at 50,000 square feet. Then you're going to have Fort Valley State University and the University of Georgia that are participating in the program that have their own contract with another private company, not one of these 6. It's a new company. Mm-hmm. Because they don't even exist. They're operating under the license of the University of Georgia or Fort Valley State. And they can be unlimited in size. There's no limit on the University of Georgia and Fort Valley State's license as far as square footage.
Can they split it out, or it still has to be one company that they give the growing power to? As
far as you're saying, can the University of Georgia contract with 4 different companies to each have their own grow house? That's one thought. I haven't even looked at the exact wording to
another loophole.
I think it just said can contract with a private company. But okay. The key is it doesn't have to be. Everybody else assumed it had to be one of these 6, but it's not. They can make their own arrangements, and their grow facility is unlimited in size.
Concerning this bill, how involved were you with the different reps or senators in tweaking details? Because it's a more it's got regulations and when the state can inspect and the monetary costs and so forth?
Yeah, at this bill I was immensely involved in. This bill actually came from last year's bill because, and that's what I told everybody in 2018. I told them, I said, when at face value, it doesn't look like we got that much in 2018, except for everybody was focused on, we added PTSD and intractable pain. I was trying to explain to everybody, no, what we really did is we just laid the groundwork for getting cultivation next year. Because in our 2018 bill, the one thing I was fighting for out of the Senate was the study commission. And that established the study commission. We met 6 times, and that started us down this path when Senator Matt Brass and Micah Gravely co-chaired the commission. Not only did it start a relationship with the two of them, but it got the Senate and the House talking to each other on the front end, not in the heat of politics of the 40-day session.
Right.
And so that's where we all kind of got together on the commission, and we allowed people to testify, and we really kind of formed the framework of what this cultivation bill is going to look like. And Senator Brass and Micah Gravely played a huge role. And I also thank them for allowing myself and the other families that, I mean, they didn't make a change without letting us know and getting our opinion on the bill. And I'm very appreciative of that.
At any point during the process this year, was there a moment when anybody was proposing a change, or you thought a change might come that would have made it impossible to support in the end? And if so, what was that?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, the one thing I was fighting for that I really liked, and I still do, even though it wasn't one of those issues where I'm like, okay, I say kill the bill, I don't like the vertical integrated system. I wanted a horizontal system. We had testimony about this during our commission.
Could you explain the difference between the two?
So basically, one, you have one license that does everything, start to finish. Okay. The other way, I wanted to give out individual licenses for just grow houses, individual licenses for just dispensaries, individual licenses for just processors that take the plant matter and process it down to concentrate and then make up different oils. And the way I describe it, I mean, you understand economics, banks, but we don't make Kia make tires.
Right.
We allow Kia to purchase Goodyear tires or Bridgestone tires from the best tire companies in the world. And so that's the reason why I don't like the model. But politically speaking, it just seems cleaner to have one license and there you're responsible. If anything goes missing, I'm only coming after you and I'm going to take your license away from you. I personally felt like there was more accountability when you had different entities at play, because if you're growing and you're growing 1,000 plants and then you bundle up that 1,000 plants and you hand it off to your processing facility and all of a sudden 100 plants shows up missing, well, you're not going to you're not going to report yourself.
No.
Because your business handed it off to your business and somebody else took 100 bales out the back door. However, if you bundle up that 1,000 plants and you hand it off to another company and they start digging through there and like,
gotcha.
Wait a minute, there's 100 plants missing here. I want my other 100 plants because I paid for 100 plants.
Right.
So there's a level of accountability. That's just free market.
And absolutely, there's the division of labor and specialization and so forth. I think that sadly, often when politicians are crafting things, I'm not talking about Micah Gravely or Ben Watson particularly, but politicians in general, especially the lawyers who are crafting it, don't necessarily have that economic background.
Well, they don't care either,
and they're not thinking. They're thinking more like when my brain is focusing on something like OCD. Oh, it has to be beautiful, and they miss the intricacies of what actually is beautiful about the free market. So. The reason that those chain of questions about understanding and so forth is, what would you respond to people who have a concern? There's two concerns about the bill that I've heard from more of the liberty side of people. People who are thinking about the economics and so forth. One is the police state side, Fourth Amendment, a lot the inspections and so forth, and the other side is the free market side. What do you say to those concerns?
I think they are 100% right. However, I mean, it's a compromise.
Sure.
And so at first it was on the table to like literally they could have, search at any given time. What we were able to do is we changed that language, but they do have 24-hour access, which is not normal. I mean, we get that. Mm-hmm. Tied to either I think the exact language in the bill says they have to record and have it available for viewing, mm-hmm. or I'm trying to remember if the final version said that it was an actual 24-hour live stream to the sheriff department. But I mean, that is a legitimate concern. I wouldn't disagree with them at all. And as far as the free market goes, that was my point, is I wanted to broaden it out. I don't think there should be a limit at all for licenses. Mm-hmm. I think just like any business, you set a standard. And now granted, if you want to set that standard really high to make sure you're dealing with only professional companies, fine. But if you hit that standard, then you should be automatically awarded a license. That's just common sense to me. However, that's not politics.
Of course, I understand the practical aspect of things. Do you think that there is a desire to continue pushing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and that would be part of my role on the commission as far as expanding.
Right.
Is the commission is going to be responsible for recommending new conditions. Technically, that goes through the medical composite board through the Department of Health. But that's going, and then also for adding licenses. Mm-hmm. So I mean, at some point, the six are not going to be able to supply enough oil for once that list gets up to 200,000. And I don't know if it'll get up to 200,000.
The number right now of cards issued is like 5,000 or 6,000. Is that correct?
It's like 9,500.
Yeah, 9,500 is what it is. And you've got everything: epilepsy, Crohn's, mitochondrial disease, Tourette syndrome, autism spectrum disorder. Man, some of these I'm not going to be able to do. Hospice and
EB,
EB. Yeah, thank you. You got pain, post-traumatic, and severe end-of-stage cancer, lateral sclerosis, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, sickle cell disease, Alzheimer's, AIDS, and peripheral neuropathy.
Neuropathy, yeah.
Yeah. So, what else would you like to see added to that list as well?
You may be frank with you?
Yeah, please.
Nothing. Everybody can moan and groan all they want to, but the reality is, if you are a living human being mm-hmm. and you need oil, you fall under one of those 16 categories.
Is that right?
I mean, granted, I don't really want to shout that from the rooftops, but hey, we've already passed our bill. But,
and that's what I was saying.
Now, the only reason why the benefit of mm-hmm. adding conditions to that list is because there probably is somebody out there that they're like, well, my specific condition's not on that list, so I can't try it. They don't realize that their specific condition also falls under multiple other categories that would fall under
one of
peripheral neuropathy.
Okay.
I mean, intractable pain. I mean, PTSD. I mean, those are some extremely broad. I wasn't going to say that during session, but those are, I mean, I don't know of anybody.
That's good, though. I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's when people want to complain to me or say, well, why aren't you back up there fighting to add X condition? I'm just, let's be practical here, man. I'm a human being. I got a family. Find a category to fit up.
Or come up here and help us.
Well, yeah. But yeah. Anyway.
So the bang for the buck for advancing liberty and being able to treat oneself is in a different direction, maybe like increasing the competition and the free market.
Absolutely. That's the most important thing that moving forward. Okay. Now, I mean, I think at some point what we would also like to see are different cards. And this is just kind of some new ideas that are just floating around in my head. And I think I would be advocating for this on the commission is because the one people that really can't be treated with our given current law are very severe cancer patients, because 5% isn't enough for them.
Right.
I would say on mostly any of those other conditions, you can get by with 5% and it not be a burden. But if you're trying to kill cancer and you're trying to deal with some very severe pain that I can only imagine could come from cancer, then you need some more high-end concentrated THC.
What do you think? I mean, just from your dealings within the industry and knowing people, what have people told you they find relief at with concentrated THC levels?
Well, that's kind of a tricky question because
minimum thresholds, kind of.
Most people don't. You've kind of go down two different paths.
Okay.
You're either going to use your tincture, which is your mixed up bottle of oil, that if you're only trying to treat the side effects of chemotherapy, like the nausea, the lack of appetite, you can treat that with a tincture, and that can be at anywhere between 0 to 5%.
Okay.
It can be, the different ratio. I don't know that much about cancer to fine tune it beyond that. Or you're serious getting to the end of life stage here, and you're trying to either one, kill your cancer or deal with the tremendous amount of pain. Well, you're not dealing with a tincture. You're taking straight concentrate.
Yeah. So
that concentrate is whatever that concentrated percentage is. And generally speaking, anywhere from 60 to 80% THC. Okay. But you're literally, taking like
a couple drops.
Not like a size of a rice grain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, it's really the smallest amount that you can squeeze out of a syringe, and it's thick.
Yeah.
And trust me, you get that stuff on you, and it takes 3 days just to eventually rub it off your finger.
Yeah. So we've got we're running about an hour 22 right now, and so I had a question before we switched gears back into the bill earlier, and you had mentioned kind of you had navigated a lot of these very weird waters we are in as a country with cannabis in terms of the western states getting the oils and things back here to Georgia. What are some tips, tricks, recommendations that you would impart on people who are, those parents that absolutely want to do this sooner than later, that you've learned, if you can?
Well, luckily nowadays, especially, the only benefit to the card that we have now, and I didn't even finish my statement earlier. I forgot. I got off sidetracked. But what I would like is a card for like 0 to 5% THC, and then a special cancer card that maybe gets you that concentrate of up to 20% or something of that nature. That's just kind of what my thought process is on that moving forward. But speaking, kind of going back to Colorado, luckily there's a fair amount of access here in Georgia. And I would say where I was going with that is that the one benefit to having the quote unquote card, because it still doesn't give you the ability to purchase it legally anywhere.
Right.
And that's anywhere in the entire country. But what it does is it provides a little bit of cover legally for those quiet entities that are selling it to families. So now there's, I know of at least 3 or 4 that are selling it, some even shipping it to families, but they're only doing it to families that have that card, so that if the law enforcement ever does go after them, they can just plead their case in front of a jury and say, look, I'm just trying to help families, and I'm trying to be as responsible as the state would allow me to be.
Right.
So I'm only selling it to families that can prove to me that they have a card. That's kind of the thought process there. So that can be done here in the state of Georgia. And we're already seeing the number of cards being issued increase greatly. And the closer we get to having legal oil available, that number is going to skyrocket.
Does that have to come from a doctor's recommendation then?
Well, on that note, yes, it does, but it does not have to come from your doctor's recommendation.
Okay.
And that's where a lot of people don't understand. They go to their doctor and say, hey, I want to get a card for my son's autism, but their doctor doesn't agree with it. So they just have to go to one of the 450 doctors in the state of Georgia that are on the registry. They have been approved by the state to help people sign up to get a card.
Right.
And that can be, my doctor's actually right here in Sandy Springs. And I have to go to him, every 6 months and, pay my $150 cash just so he can look at Colin and say, yep, looking good. See ya. So little things like that we want to do away with.
Yeah.
Is to make it to where it's not as strenuous to, one, get a card, or two, keep a card.
Sure.
Then you got the whole issue of, everything seems like it has to be cash, but there are some, I've got some really amazing, funny / scary stories. I'll tell one if you don't mind.
Please, please do.
Absolutely.
I was actually reminiscing the other day with a buddy of mine. I told him this story. So if you can only imagine, my mom here in Georgia gets a phone call at like 7:00. She's having dinner with my uncle and aunt and my dad at Longhorn. And it was like a Friday night. It was 4:00 in Denver, or 5:00, whatever, in Denver. And I went, Mom, I already had the money arranged in my bank account. I said, but I need you to wire me $15,000 now. And so she's like, well, this Friday afternoon. It's 7:00 here in Georgia. Like the banks are closed, So they're having to like scrounge to like find like cash and like, because this checking out. And so like, I got it in the money market, but I don't have it. I don't have access to that till Monday morning, And because I needed $15,000 cash for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
It never even occurred to me that, illegal drug dealers, and even in Denver, don't take credit cards. Because they're legal, but this activity that I'm asking
they still have to go
is,
through cash.
It's not legal.
Yeah.
Even for me, purchasing what I was there to purchase was not legal.
Right.
Whether I had cash or credit card.
Yeah.
And so
cash
dealing with the black market, even in Denver, you still got to have cash.
Free market is what we like to say here on the Rebellion. The only black market out there is kind of that weird slave sex trade and all that fun stuff. Everything else is just free market without government interruption.
Right. So I spend the next hour and a half on the phone with Western Union trying to convince them that I really am Dale Jackson, Nan Jackson's son, and she really is sending me the money. That because apparently there's this thing out there I was unaware of where old people get taken advantage of because young people will call up to their grandmother and say, this is so-and-so, your grandson, and I'm stranded, in California, and my engine blew up in my car, and I need $5,000.
Right next to this dispensary.
Yeah.
Look at that, though. The free market company, Western Union, who sees a problem, who's like, hey, we're going to do some extra checking here.
Oh,
so
yeah. So,
amazing.
I had to, literally take pictures and, text them back to my mom so that she could show the Western Union person that, yeah, that really is my son, and I'm FaceTiming him right now, And it was crazy. I never even knew that was an issue. But so we finally got them to agree that I really was Dale Jackson and my mom really was my mom. Well, next hurdle, this is Friday afternoon in Denver. Everybody just got their paycheck. So every single Western Union is out of money. They have no more money to get, because everybody needs cash, especially on the weekend in Denver, but obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So we had to go to 7 different Western Unions, and they're, now it's 5:00, 6:00, 7. Now they're starting to close, so I got to get there before they close. So we went to 7 different Western Unions. Finally, got all of the money that we needed. Oh, it was hilarious. So we finally meet the guy that we've spent the last 4 days trying to arrange this and figure out who had what, concentrate and what, blah blah blah. So he was 2 hours away. So he comes in and meets us. I am literally jumping the back of this guy's truck with what amounts to a book bag full of cash. Because, the Western Unions were run out of money. So I didn't have $15,000 of $100 bills. I had 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s, 50s, 100s. Literally, and then so we're doing this drug deal, driving around there's a grocery store, major chain in Colorado. I forget the name, something Mart, Stein Mart, or I don't know what it was. But so we're driving around the parking lot, and me and him are in the back seat, literally counting 1, 1, 1, 5, 5, 5, all the way to 15,000 in the back of a truck, trying not to spill all the cash everywhere. So we finally, this is a guy that we just physically saw this guy for the very first time. And so then I say, okay, here's my $15,000. Now you go and bring us back our concentrate. It's like literally a jar like this big of concentrate. And so he left. And because he had to go purchase it from somebody else. So I couldn't tell him, hey, I'll pay you once you bring it back. Because no, he had to take it. This was just the middle
capital.
guy. Yeah. He had to have the cash so that he could get it. He's 2 hours away. So now it's like 9:30. Guess what 11:59 is? That's our flight out of Denver. That night.
Wow.
He's 2 hours away, or hour and a half, whatever it was. So I hand him $15,000, hoping that he comes back. So we're at the airport. Normally we always it's always safest to put it in your check bags so you don't have to walk through the airport, buy all the drug sniffing dogs and, in your book bag that's going to go through the, x-ray or whatever. Mm-hmm. So our flight's at 11:59. Well, flights have to be checked an hour prior.
Yep.
So it's 10. It's 10:20. We're calling him, texting him. Where you at, man? Where you at? You coming? He's like, yeah, I'm coming. Traffic's bad. And traffic really was bad. We're standing out on the little where everybody drives up in the Denver airport, and you can see a long way, and we see the traffic. So this is 10:45, and he's still not there. So we have to go and check our luggage, and now all we got is 2 carry-ons. And so eventually he's getting closer. I mean, he's telling us where he's at, and we can see it, but traffic is so slow. It's 11:15. All right, our flight's now in 40 minutes. So we have to walk. We walk down the I don't know what you call it, the ramp basically, and jump in the car with him. And so we've got to take this concentrate, wrap it in a plastic bag, wipe it down with rubbing alcohol, wrap it in a plastic bag, wipe it down with rubbing alcohol, tape it up, wrap it in a plastic bag, rub it down with alcohol. And we're doing this as we're driving, because we can't just stop in the middle. And Lord knows you pull over in an airport, 10 seconds later, there's a cop saying, you got to move. Yeah. So we literally have to drive all the way back around the loop in the Denver airport and then proceed to run through the airport with contraband and hoping not to cause a scene to make our 11:59 flight.
Wow.
And we did, and we didn't get searched. Or, I guess technically our bags went through there, but they didn't see it. I had to shove it in one of my shoes.
Good thing the red team is real efficient over there.
Yeah. Really.
Thanks TSA.
So anyway, that was just one funny story.
You don't look that old, Dale. Seriously, how old are you?
I will actually be 40 this year. I'm 39.
Yeah, so we're the same age, man. And you've got all your hair. It's mostly got.
It's a lot grayer the last 5 years.
Color. Well, that's just kids in general. But to be running this kind of stuff, brother, that's amazing. But that's what people do for kids, man. I think it's a kind of a great note to wrap up on. I think
I need to ask one question before, because I'm just dying. You're a smart person. You're aware of things and plan
and successful.
What were you prepared to do if you were caught with it? Just have it be confiscated, or
they throw it in the trash can like water?
Well, that actually happened later, but not on that trip. What I was prepared to do is to go to court and argue my case in front of a jury. Okay. My wife would have had a heart attack in the meantime. But I was kind of wanting to get arrested. Now, granted, I did not want to get arrested in Colorado, and I really didn't want to get arrested from a federal point of view.
Right.
That did worry me greatly. But here in the state of Georgia, and they had their opportunity. That's a whole nother funny story. And I'm trying to think what I can say. And the grand jury has already voted not to prosecute me, so I guess I'm safe. But I'm trying not to get other people in trouble. So there was a package that we got sloppy on because we were rushed because we needed to get it to the lab. The problem in Georgia, you operate in an illegal state. Well, the labs can't test your product because they could lose their license for testing something that they know came from out of state. Mm-hmm. But we finally found a lab in Oregon that agreed that if we would mail it to X individual in Oregon and they could drive it themselves to the lab, that they would test it and then give it back to him, and then he could give us the results. And so, and my son was running out of medicine, so we got sloppy, and we didn't vacuum seal the bag like we should have. And so we were sending out samples of our oil, samples of concentrate, because we needed to get an exact level on the concentrate so that we knew how much to mix it in. Plus, we wanted to make sure that, there were no pesticides or heavy metals in there. And we couldn't really do anything until we got back these lab results. And so long story short, we got sloppy. It got handed off to an individual, let's just say it was very close to me, and he knew what the package was, so he couldn't touch it in law enforcement when our package got confiscated. And so he handed it off to someone else that was also very close to me, and he was going to process it and ended up calling me and basically just giving me a heads up, saying, hey, I've been called into work. 1, I need you to babysit my 3-year-old daughter. 2, I'm going in to handle a package, because he was the GBI rep locally. And I was like, whoa, I know what package you're talking about. And you need to know what that package is, because you're about to cause a major storm nationally. Because, I would have hit the roof if they would have tried to arrest us. And I think that it would have. So anyway, another person that is elected locally, I let him know that, hey, you need to watch out, because if they move forward with this, it's going to be a major political storm. I'm going to make a very big to-do out of it. And so long story short, my friend ended up getting fired because he told him that he talked to me ahead of time. And so I called up to the police office, the police department the next day, and I was like, so I understand that you confiscated my package. And they're like, well, we'd like to talk to you about that package. I said, well, I'd like to talk to you about that package. I was like, you need to know what that, I couldn't have, if I intentionally tried to get one of our packages confiscated, I couldn't even have drawn it up this good, that I'm literally sending just samples to a lab to get tested to make sure that they're safe, so that I can make sure that my son is taken care of. It wasn't a box full of weed. It was, liquid and, wax concentrates and finished product.
In small amounts.
In very small amounts. And so I couldn't drone it up any better. And he said, well, come in and talk to us. And so I came in, and the detective, set me down, and I'm assuming which is their friendly interrogation room. They got like sofas and, comfortable chairs. And so we're sitting there, and I explained to him exactly what's in the box. And about an hour goes by, and his questions kind of transition from asking me curiosity-wise, what's in here, to now he's like wanting to know a little bit too much about my personal, involvement and what we're doing. And so I just very politely told him, I said, well, the conversation obviously just transitioned from a question and answer to interrogation. And so I'm going to leave now. And he's like, that's fine. Go ahead. So I went from that conversation to straight across the hall to the district attorney, and who I also know fairly well. And I was like, hey, you're about to have a package dumped in your lap, and we need to have a conversation about it prior to, because I didn't want him inadvertently doing something that makes this whole thing blow up. He didn't have a clue. He didn't know anything about cannabis or anything. So first thing he said was, whoa. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law, blah. I was like, I don't care. I was like, because everything I'm about to tell you, I'm going to openly and freely tell the jury and the judge. So I'm not, it doesn't bother me if you take this down that path. And so he said, well, okay, just wanted you to be aware. And I got 4 minutes into explaining to him the situation. He was so pissed off. He was like, I can't believe, what are you talking about? You can't buy it. We passed the law. Of course you can buy it. No, you can't buy it. He didn't know anything. He was so ticked off at the current law and just, it's a joke that he was like, he's like, look. It's like, and I hadn't said his name yet.
So he exercised some discretion here.
Right. And it was like, just tell me what happened. And so I told him the whole story. And I mean, he was actually going to serve on the Cannabis Commission with us. Mm-hmm. But and he told us that it would be better for a sheriff to serve versus a district attorney.
Sure.
Just for political reasons. So that's why we asked James Woodruff to serve. But anyway, so they called the GBI and they were like, hey, what do we do? And the GBI said, step one, bring us the package. Let's make sure that it is what you were told it is. And then secondly, under no uncertain terms, do not, for any reason, arrest anybody. And so for 6 months, I had to sit back and wait to hear if I was going to be prosecuted until the grand jury. Because it took the GBI like 4.5 months just to get the lab results back and to prove that it really was what it was.
Yeah.
In that interim period, were you allowed to see what the results were from the lab in Oregon or not?
No, because it never got to Oregon.
Oh, okay.
The UPS caught it here not here, but
okay, I had missed that
in
detail.
LaGrange.
Got it.
Yeah, on its way to Oregon. So we would have never gotten the samples back. They would just send us the lab results.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but the real sad part to that though is because of that. I mean, my wife has been very understanding because I cannot properly convey just how opposite I am with my wife. So, I
imagine I understand.
I can really bend some rules and push the boundaries. That is not my wife.
Yeah.
But she went along with kind of our adventures. But that was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
When it was a legitimate, real risk of being arrested. Mm-hmm. So we stopped producing then. And I don't plan to ever produce again, but I have data, I have knowledge that I want to continue to share with other autistic families and just people in general. But so when we had 200 bottles of oil that we had already had been lab tested. And so the sad part was, we were providing oil to hundreds of families all over the whole country. Mm-hmm. And so now all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, their source of medicine just poof, gone. And it broke my heart. And matter of fact, I spent a straight, I don't know how many, 48 hours. That after we made the decision that we were done, I loaded up at least 150 bottles of oil in my truck and left out on a Friday morning and drove through Tennessee, through Kentucky, through Pennsylvania to upstate New York and back down through North Carolina and delivering oil to those families. And I told them, this is your one shot, get as much as you can, because there will never be any more. But we couldn't ship them. We were, needless to say, we were a little worried about
gun
shipping.
shy, yeah.
So I had to physically deliver them to dozens of families. So
there's a whole nother just set of risk doing that. Wow.
Jeez. But I commend you.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I mean your effort in this whole cause has been tremendous, and so I hope good things for you as you go forward on this on the board, hopefully here in Georgia and anything else you're doing, because what a righteous cause it is. We kind of like to do something fun at the end here, a little speed round. Just answer the questions as quick as you can. Okay. No wrong answers. Everybody's judging you, so no big things, right? What's your favorite book?
Oh, good Lord. Well, I am a Christian. I do love the Bible.
You're the first person to answer that. Out of everybody we've talked to, you're the first person to answer that. That's awesome.
The first book, non-Bible, that I've actually read was a Ron Paul book. Now I don't even remember. I take that back. I'm sorry. Road to Serfdom was the first book that, you know, kind of as an adult where you don't like have to read a book in high school, you know. But anyway, you said speed round, and
yeah, it's all right. You got a favorite founder?
By far, Thomas Jefferson.
You got a favorite politician in office today, by any chance?
In office today, without a doubt, it would be. I mean, the three amigos, Rand Paul,
Amash and Massey.
Yeah. I mean, I know that hasn't ever been said on your show.
Yeah, I usually reserve this for the end, but this isn't going to be the last question. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Yeah.
And, I made it 39 years without having to have a cat, and now I do, but it stays in the barn.
This one's nice. Just more for comedic relief. Indica or sativa? I'm just kidding, man.
Yeah, I've never smoked.
Never.
No, I until this whole ordeal.
Yeah,
I had never even physically seen marijuana except for one time in high school in the 10th grade. This really weird guy. I was kind of friends with him, but he was kind of off. I mean, we weren't really good friends. And he like opened up this cigar box and showed me like a baggie with weed in it. And so I went from that in 10th grade to the next time I saw it, it literally was a suitcase full that I was looking to buy.
Right.
You know, and never smoked it ever.
That's really interesting.
Unbelievable.
Anything you want to plug, like a website to go to, people who want to support the cause or know more about
anything you want to plug,
or follow you on social media.
Well, I serve on the board of a organization called SAFE, Safe Access for Everyone, and our objective is to not only we serve kind of as a organizing effort to organize parents and to also lobby for new laws, and then now that we actually pass cultivation. You know, we're looking to help just assist with making sure that they set the standards, good standards, but not too overburdensome standards. And so that's just a really good organization that, you know, that I serve on.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. You want to wrap up, dude?
Yeah. I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, Dale. I've followed a lot of what you've done, but I didn't know.
I think a lot of our audience has.
Even 10% of the stories. And, I've just had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
personally.
I would love to have you back and do more stories. I mean, as you've dealt with this, as you see what's coming here in the future, especially here in Georgia, I would love to be able to pick your brain as much as we can without giving things away, and really just kind of get your take. You're probably one of the forefront people here, especially in Georgia, on this scene, and I can't thank you enough for coming in and being with us here on the Rebellion, man. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, to kind of see your heart, see your cause, man, and what an honor it's been. So, hey, if you found any value in this show, go out there, leave us a 5-star review on whatever you're listening to, whatever platform that is. If you want to become a patron of the show, you can go to patreon.com/rebellionpod.
If you have any comments, criticism, you want us to have a different guest on or another guest on, you can send it to info@rebellionpod.com or on any of our social media, which is @rebellionpod. And as always, this is your place for peace, liberty, and free markets.
We love you. We need you. Peace.
Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.